Hello, Maggie. We're back. KBs, we're back. You know, one of the most exciting privileges that we have as co-creators of the universe is the authority to have exactly what we desire. I'm so excited to know that today.
Yes.
Should I drink any of this LaCroix? Probably.
I mean,
Probably not.
it's risky.
Thank you for the water, but I think the carbonation might be an issue.
It's risky, for sure.
I'm pretty jacked up. We've got a concert here in just a couple of days, and
I know.
I'm getting excited. That's in Salisbury, North Carolina.
It's going to be so much fun.
Have you ever been to Salisbury, North Carolina?
I have actually played a concert, a symphony concert there when I was like 16 or something.
Well, it's a sweet, sweet place to be this weekend. Weather is nice. I'm not going to do a forecast on a podcast.
With a chance of a cold front, no. It's actually warming up here quite a bit, so.
Well, we're sitting outside, and there are
Again.
birds all around us, and
I could
the
not
sounds of the birds in the
believe
background.
listening back to when we recorded outside last time. I mean, the birds almost didn't sound real. It sounded like a track or something.
You're right. That's correct.
Are you distracted by the motorcycle?
There's lots of things going on around us. But anyway, hello, KB's kineticbelief.com is the website. And we are here today because...
And at
Yes.
Stephen Canyon, Instagram.
What other things are there?
There's Facebook. That's
Which-
also Stephen Canyon.
Stephen Canyon. Is
Yeah.
there a phone number we want to throw out there? Probably not.
844-844-0049.
And what does that do?
You just send a text to it, and then that signs you up to occasionally receive text messages from Stephen and or myself.
And then this time next week, we will be in Colorado again.
Goodness.
Back out in Colorado in the high Rockies.
So excited.
But you know something? Human beings, we can imagine and attract all things conceivable for advancing the mind, body, spirit, and soul toward perfected completion. And I don't say that lightly, even though it came out lightly. That's a big deal when it comes to dealing with things in our lives that we want to see changed. Relationships, employment,
Yes.
our genius of purpose manifesting right before our very eyes. Very real possibility. In fact, we're experiencing exactly what we've been imagining all along anyway. Those are our experiences.
Yes.
That's the reality of the realness in our lives that's manifesting day in and day out.
You know, we talk a lot about if you can imagine it, you can have it. But we also talk about the universe and belief and how the positive source energy always shows up even more than we can think or imagine. And I think that's interesting that when you lean into the positive source energy, you always get more than you bargained for, which I think is really wonderful.
Yes, manifestation comes in a holistic way that's more than we could have ever thought of or imagined.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are experiences that have yet to be experienced. All we can imagine are the subjective reality, the imagination is it's the connective tissue between us and possibility, us and consciousness that goes beyond us. Source imagination,
Yes.
source desire. The bias that created us has within it more than we've experienced. So obviously, when we dwell in that higher place of consciousness, that connectiveness is the thing that draws out more than we can think of.
And I think that's really thrilling because how great for us, you know, us with our limited experience, our limited knowledge to the life that we've lived.
Yes,
We get to
yes.
lean into the limitless possibilities of the universe. It's this really symbiotic partnership that we're in.
And I was having a conversation with someone yesterday about this very thing, and I said to him, this is why it is so vital that you not be closed-minded, that you not say, you know, unless I see it, I'm not going to believe it. Because when we're
Yes.
closed-minded, we
Yes.
shut ourselves off from the limitless, from the more coming into our lives.
Something that you said, one of the first things actually you said to me when we first met, all those years ago, Steve. I just loved it. I said, "Do you believe in aliens?" And you said, "Of course." You said, "I'm a believer." And it's funny, but it really made me pause. And I thought, wow, you know, it's important to just go through life in the posture of belief and just to call yourself a believer. And the alien thing, obviously, I'm being a little funny with that. We were kind of having a funny conversation there. But when you said, I'm a believer, that means that you're predisposed to believe, and you're not approaching life as a cynic, with expecting everything to touch it and for it to not be true, for it to not be real.
Are you kidding me? Look around where we are right now. Who am I to say that I don't believe in that bush or that tree or those birds, the water, the fountains, anything? We come into this universe. We come out of the universe into this place that we're now occupying, created from the substance of belief. Somebody says, well, I don't believe that. Well, that's what you believe, that you don't believe that.
Wow.
You can't escape this thing called belief.
Yeah.
A belief, when it's no longer questioned by the one that's believing, creates a kinetic energy field, which rapid fires this constructive commands into the quantum building blocks for all things. And so circumstances begin to change according to what we are willing to believe. It's the willingness that manifests the things or the substance of what we are willing to believe. And so the miraculous begins to show up in the life of those who are willing to believe in the miraculous, and it shows up without explanation. It doesn't require it to be defined. In other words, if you're willing, then all things become possible for those that are.
It doesn't require it to be defined. That's incredibly powerful. And, belief, when you say it that way, you see it now as this anchor point. It's incredibly foundational. I was cruising through Instagram this morning, and just for a minute, and by the time I got done, I had the quote fatigue. Like, goodness gracious, all the inspirational quotes, like, I mean, it was just so much, and it was just, I don't know, my brain couldn't even handle all of the motivational quotes. I couldn't even absorb it. And so for you to describe belief in this way feels incredibly refreshing, because we just get to stand on it, and we don't have to define it. We don't have to talk it to death. It's something that is, and and like you just said, it's a part of us. It's a part of our origin story. So this is, again, I'm finding this refreshing right now.
Well, all of those positive cognitive reasonings of positive quotes become exhausting because they're reasoned with, and it is a cognitive realization of these things being possible rather than them becoming you. So as they become us, the essence of positivity becomes you. You no longer reason with it. It's not exhausting. It's just the way of life.
Yeah.
And then, wow, when we get hold of these things, Maggie, that we're talking about as kinetic believers, then by not giving up on the continuum of our original dreams and those hopes and all of those aspirations that we have as children, as young human beings who haven't been tampered with yet, all of those things are the key connectors to every single person's original purpose that we come into this universe with. And the increase of our experiential knowledge then, and all of those habitual thoughts that manifest the original concept of us, remain untainted as long as we continue to go back into that original genius of purpose without the negative influencer saying, hold up, wait a minute, you're not like me, you shouldn't be doing that, you're crazy to think that you can go beyond this place of now.
Wow. So I want to make sure I understand. So what you're saying is, that belief is a huge part of constantly bringing to life our genius of purpose, which it sounds like you're saying in a way is, for lack of a better word, cleansing us, keeping us fresh and at the core, sort of washing away all these things that society wants to put on us, or that we've maybe even put on ourselves or other people.
Yes, because we are, every single person, is a one of a kind version of the human species that is a unique, beautiful masterpiece. But it's only when it's been tainted by the need for validation or the redefining words and expectations and judgments of other people, when you believe that stuff, then you become a foggy version of that original faceted, beautiful diamond that was created to shine and be a light in this world.
And so this is, all of a sudden, I feel like we're taking a little side road here to talk about, border bullies in relationships, because if you have to make sure that you're not being muddied up so much that you can't, the returning to your genius of purpose can't even keep you washed away. So, it can sort of one can absolutely outrun the other if we're not protecting ourselves.
That is the challenge of everyday living, is to come out from under condemnation. As soon as you think you've mastered it, as soon as we believe that we have overcome the default negativity of family and friends that had access that we couldn't shake or get rid of, that was speaking negative, toxic things into our lives, I'm telling you that it may be the grocery store clerk, it could be the Uber driver, it might be the neighbor's dog, I don't know. It'll come from somewhere, though. So this is the challenge of living, that every single day we are prepared as kinetic believers, mastering that positive energy, that positive vortex of life, liberty, freedom, mind, soul, body, advancing toward perfected completion, mastering that to the place where the first and the most important challenge that we face every single day is for us to come out from under every sense of condemnation from wherever it may come from. It could come from the television, that station channel that you're watching. It could come from someone else in traffic. But we are absolutely taxed with the necessity of coming out from every sense of condemnation. There are no negative imaginations that are harbored within the kinetic believer that is manifesting the essence of their creative genius, their purpose for being here. And so even when a negative judgment comes from somewhere else, maybe you believe yourself to be of a race that's being condemned, a gender that's being condemned, a nation that's being condemned and judged by the rest of the world as being bad. Whatever it is, those things are dream killers. If you attach yourself to those condemnations, it will stab in the heart the aspiration that you were put into this world to hold up. And so when we meditate on those negative things, we're constructing a narrative that will ultimately produce the life that we're going to experience as the believer that we are. When we believe, and we have no choice but to believe it, we're believers. So if it's before your eyes, if it's in those gateways that open up the heart of the essence of the manifesting power that we have, if we allow ourselves to see it, to hear it, to read it, to be in the sphere of influence of that, then that energetic is going to produce the life we're experiencing. So we have, as kinetic believers, that every single day objective of establishing ourselves within the essence of what we know to be true about ourselves, and to live our truth and to become that truth, and to put emphasis on and pressure on that peace and joy and happiness and life and love and health to be ours and to manifest in a way that we become world changers, as the lighthouse in the wilderness is supposed to be.
Well, and kinetic belief tells us that not only are we doing approaching these challenges and overcoming these challenges to maintain our sense of self and that identity as a kinetic believer, but good news, a challenge, we get to graduate. It means you get to be improved upon, and you get to rise above this, and the next time it shows up, it's an easy test to pass, and even though the next one's coming, I just think it's something to celebrate. The growth is something to celebrate. So not only are we protecting our identity, but we're growing by leaps and bounds by passing these tests as they come.
And the graduate, let's take a doctor for example. There comes a time when a physician graduates from medical school and they are given their own surgical instruments, and now it's time to go out and do surgery. That doesn't mean that you do surgery once and it's no longer required. We successfully, every single day as kinetic believers, get up to perform surgery on ourselves, not other people, but we're surgically removing the negative toxicity that seeks to destroy and to make sick and to bring disease into the realm of our positive energetics. So we remove those things because we graduated from the medicinal school of living our best lives.
Can you even imagine graduating and now you're supposed to go perform surgery? I mean, I passed out when somebody took my stitches out.
Yes.
You know,
You know,
it's
that's
just amazing.
really, that's a great point, because most people pass out at the thought of surgically removing toxic people from their lives.
Ooh.
And so they avoid
Yeah.
it at any cost. I can't stand the sight of someone else's proverbial blood of personality, that blood that I don't want to see it. I can't stand the thought of dealing with something head on. So
Yeah.
I'm going to avoid it and just hope for the best outcome. It doesn't
Avoidance
happen
is
that
so
way.
real too. You can feel it when you're pulling away. You're sort of turning away from something. You can feel the ick factor kicking in. Like, oh, I do not want to deal with this. I do not want to do this today. There's no part of me that wants to. But would you agree that those are typically the times where it's most important?
Absolutely. Well, you taught me that. You taught me
What?
that years ago. You said, jerk that Band-Aid off.
Oh.
Jerk it off.
I
Take it
did.
out. Don't pull at it. Don't let it sit there. It needs to come off. And I've got more hair on my arms than you do.
Just jerk the
Just
Band-Aid off.
pull it. Don't pull
Yeah.
it slowly. Just jerk it off. But isn't that how we should be dealing with anything that's toxic in our lives?
Yeah.
Don't coddle it. Don't enable it. Don't allow it to stand for another day. Jerk it off and do it today so you can get on living your flourishing best life.
Yes.
You know, every single one of us is experiencing today, right now in this moment, a life that's been created by something that we've been talking about. In other words, you know, I can only say something that I've thought about, and I can only say something that I've been thinking about, and something that I've been reasoning with. And this is how we create vacuums of expectations that form the lives that we're going to experience. And don't take my word for it. There's so many just reams of and volumes of research now that's been done that shows that bias of a belief actually determines molecularly. It determines the substance that is going to be attracted into, by particle entanglement, our sphere of influence. The things you see showing up, the personalities and other people that are coming into your life. All of these things are coming because of, our biases, our subjective beliefs. Maybe we believed that we were losers because Daddy told us we were when we were 6 years old. And so that bias of belief brings other type, the same type of people into our lives that are perhaps failing at most of life. They're losing in the definition of man's definition of losing. They're failing at most of life, and we're surrounding ourselves with failures in that sense because we believed that we were a failure because Daddy told us we were when we were kids. Well, research is showing why that is the case. But now, one of the most bizarre premises of that type of research, of quantum theory, in other words, which is fascinating philosophers, fascinating physicists, states that, you know what, by the very act of just watching something, watching a rodeo, watching the neighbors, watching kids throw rocks, watching something, the observing of that affects the observed reality. Things change through observation. We change through observation. We change according to how we interpret what we're observing. And so the bias of a person's belief literally changes reality. We had a great conversation yesterday. We were several years ago out in Colorado, and we went to a Shakespeare, out in the outdoor Shakespeare. I don't remember what the Shakespeare thing. What was it? Was it?
I think it was Othello.
Was it Othello?
Maybe it was Shakespeare in the Park. So I'm not totally sure. Or no, it was Romeo.
wasn't
It was
Othello.
Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah. But so there was and it was an interpretation of that. But we were in this big tent, and they'd built this wooden stage, and the steps were made of plywood. And the wood nymphs, is that what they were?
No, they were the soldiers.
But they were the girls.
Oh, yeah.
And that were bringing the crowds in to begin with, and dancing around outside.
And sort of hooping and hollering.
And hooping and hollering and running around and all of these things.
Basically anyone that didn't get a part just
Hilarious to us.
got to run up and...
But then into the show, the wooden steps, every single entrance and exit made by the players of that Shakespearean theater, whatever, they would stomp on those steps, and it was so loud to us. But you know something, we don't. It made it fun, didn't it? We were. I mean, it was entertaining beyond entertaining. To be observers of that, and not to negatively judge it, but it was so distracting to the Shakespeare, and it wasn't intentional, I'm sure, but the reality of it was what it was, and it was loud, and it was army boots. They were wearing and camouflage.
They weren't laced up. That was the biggest issue. So they would because I think there were like 2 or 3 people playing 9 parts.
So
they were changing shoes.
And I've never seen a production that had more entrances and exits because of the few players that were playing these 100 different roles. And so the stomp, 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 up and down, so loud with the army boots on.
Like, I think they're here.
It became entertaining. It was entertaining for us.
Yes.
And other shows that we go like, and you'll see 1 or 2 things that sticks out, but yes, high five, this is life, and it's glorious, and it's wonderful, and it's humorous. So as observers of this river of life going by, we delight in the unexpected because of a light heart. And when we find joy and happiness in these things, it isn't an immediate judgment. It can be a negative. Well, you're ruining my Shakespeare play here tonight. Somebody should have created a stage that didn't echo the entrances and exits. We have, at every moment of every day, the ability to see life as a positive, entertaining, wonderful way of going and happening or as a wreck and a disaster. And how dare you ruin my evening at the Shakespeare Theater.
And a great example of this too is you and I were recently in a city that we hadn't been to in many, many years, and we were walking around just taking the afternoon off, and you said everybody seems a lot nicer here than they were when we were here before. I said they do seem a lot, everyone in the city, why are they so nice? And then we started laughing because we both simultaneously realized that it was probably us.
Probably so.
But it's how we were perceiving everything, how we are approaching everything. It's how you are, just like you're saying, it's how you're approaching life and experiences as an observer that 9 times out of 10 is going to determine your true experience.
Absolutely. There was a comedian that you were watching not long ago, and he said that when he was in high school, he went to 3 different high schools, and the first one he was at, he said everybody there was a jerk. And then he went to another high school, and he said everybody there was just a jerk and mean and horrible. And he moved to another high school, and he said, well, wait a minute.
He said, oh, it's me.
Oh, hold on.
It only took 10,000 kids
to
realize that you're
I'm the mean jerk in all of this.
But it is interesting though, isn't it? Because you can feel it even at the beginning. Even if you're a seasoned Kinetic believer, if you wake up with a little moodiness or a little weirdness going on in your mind, and you walk out the door that way, it affects your entire day because you are approaching it with and I guess that's based on expectation, right? You're projecting an expectation of negativity.
What's how we are seeing life through our own lens. Most people judge others by what they themselves would do. And then most others, we judge other people's by our good intentions as well. And so whatever it is that we see ourselves as, we are labeling all of life that way. Yeah. And so if you see things in a negative, if you think people are, there goes some skateboarders, how dare them go down the sidewalk, and what a bunch of bums they are. They should be studying like I would have been studying. It's a bias. That's the problem. The kids these days, the music that they listen to, all of that, the bias of a person's belief literally changes their own reality. And so the problem is we are all believers. And now that can be a problem. Because somebody will say, well, I just don't believe that. But that's what you believe, is that you don't believe that. You don't believe it. Either way, we're all experiencing what we believe about things. And this is the power of being a Kinetic believer. Understanding that, you know what, we have a We have the ability to change how we see things, the ability to change how we see the work that we are doing, the tasks that we're doing, the ability to relabel our chores around the house. When we're cleaning the kitchen, it's either a positive or a negative, but we have the authority and the ability to change it into a positive energetic or a negative one. And to be the best at cleaning the kitchen with excitement and quickness and a thoroughness, or to do it in a belabored way that says, I'm better than this. I shouldn't be cleaning this kitchen. This is beneath me. Both of those will affect the outcome of your own life. It will affect the now that you're experiencing in the tomorrows. It's creating your next year. It's creating the advancement of your mind, body, and soul, or the negative detriment of that to decrease to become less than it was ever intended to be.
I feel like everything you're saying right now is also, in a certain way, redefining the term responsibility. Because many times we're taught that you have to take responsibility. You need to take responsibility. But based off of what you're telling us right now, we get to. This is our true superpower, is that we get to autonomously, with free will and the ability to choose our own path. Responsibility is now all of a sudden the silver bullet, the magic bullet, if you will, to make the life that you want.
Yes, and that's the good news, isn't it?
Yes.
We have the responsibility to make the life, to create the life that we want. That's great news.
Yes.
And that's why knowing all of this is so important, because no hell is worse than that in which one lives without knowing it. And the good news is we can alter our reality through the creative power of kinetic belief. Albert Einstein called all of this that we're talking about the ability of separated objects to share a condition or a state. He called it spooky action at a distance. And since words really are things, perhaps we should be saying some good things. Because knowing all of this, I'm going to choose the conversations that I will allow myself to have from the basis of their positive or their negative essence. Period. I've got to do that. Because this is the first step toward beginning a prosperous, healthy, blessed life of intentional, abundant manifestations.
Wow. Responsibility, again, you're taking us there. Responsibility for the conversations we're having. There's a great scripture in the Bible that says, think on things that are pure and lovely. Do that. You have the choice to do that. And just because the whole world is, just like little piranhas, just chewing up the negative news to pieces and feeding on it, does not mean that we have to. That is our choice.
Yes, and that New Testament scripture that you just quoted, it's not there just because it reads well, because it's fluffy it sounds nice. No, it's because we're creating when we do those things. It's directing our lives. We're the captain of our ships. And so if I choose to say only good things, my mind, body, and soul will absolutely follow. It follows that. And we are all the stuff that makes the universe aware of itself. And all things are interconnected. And as we imagine, however we imagine, whatever our imagination is doing, wherever it goes, so goes the rest of us. And the substance of creation is not a respecter of persons. It doesn't matter who we are. It doesn't care who we are. We are who we are as awareness in this universe. And if we follow the laws of creative engagement with the substance of things hoped for, we attract the abundant life that we were meant to experience, the life that we desire. That happens, period. There's no exception to this rule. You're not going to come along and be the first person to imagine one thing and experience another.
Right. It's a sure thing.
And if you are the first person, go write a book about it and get rich off of it.
Or don't, because it didn't happen.
Or it really didn't happen. You're deceived. But when we find that we're constantly justifying ourselves to others for their validation, that is a sure sign that we're operating under the negative influences of self-actualized condemnations. No one can actually condemn you. It has to be self-actualized. We've got to receive that and believe that to be true about ourselves and redirect our expectations away from the Creator and put it on somebody that's tangible in the empirical realm around us.
There's another scripture that comes to mind, and don't ask me where it is, and I'm definitely paraphrasing it, but it basically says that, when you look for your reward in other people for something you've done, that is your reward. That is all you'll get.
Yeah.
And how beautiful that, I think that speaks to the intimacy of our relationship with the universe. Don't step out on the universe with other people needing their validation. Your validation will come from within, and the universe and your Creator will give you the ultimate validation, the never-ending validation. It's a wellspring that keeps on giving and giving and giving. But, if you look for a pat on the back from Aunt Sally, that's all you're going to get.
I love that. Don't step out on the universe. Isn't that wonderful? Because the universe doesn't have a negative expectation for any of us.
Yeah.
And we're stepping out on the universe when we do go to Aunt Sally and say, what do you think of me now?
Yeah.
Even if she says, I think you're wonderful.
Exactly.
It's still less than what was intended originally for us.
Well, and what a powerful phrase that it's so definitive. It says that's all you will have. You've slammed the door on the possibility of so much more from your Creator.
Our lives are meant to advance, to be more today than it was yesterday. And we will no longer be mesmerized by what Aunt Sally and all these other people think by mindfully. And this is the task of putting pressure on our best lives to manifest. When we mindfully cast down negative imaginations and bring into captivity every single thought into the obedience of our advancing lives.
Yes.
Kinetic believers, we choose our articles of faith, and we do it by writing, by journaling, by writing out exactly what we imagine to desire. And by replacing the word I want or, I wish, we replace that with I have. Then the daily, unwavering, meditative practice of kinetic belief journaling would develop, and it attracts and it manifests this abundant way of living, like a tree continuing to blossom and flourish and reach toward a sunny sky. And we should not try, and this goes back to kind of what you were saying earlier, we shouldn't try to visualize some desired destination. Because this life is a journey. It's far more than any destination. It's far more than any cottage by the sea.
Yeah.
Only imagine steps. Only imagine trophies along the way. Only imagine those benchmarks. And the universe has its part to do, and it is vastly loaded with surprises, loaded with those trophies, and loaded with more than enough, pressed down, shaken together, and overflowing. It's loaded with heart's desire, which is far more than anything that we could ever think of or imagine.
Oscar Wilde I think it was Oscar Wilde. He had a great quote about, he said something to the effect of, if you think you know who or what you want to be in life, then that's your punishment. If you think you know you want to be fill in the blank, you'll be punished, and you'll have to live out that life as that thing. And so I think that speaks to how the fundamental nature of life is misunderstood. You just mentioned a journey. And it is the perfect word to describe life, because if you misuse life, you could even see it as a tool. It's a spoon when you need a knife. You have to understand what life is supposed to be to get the most out of it.
Yeah, because we are all active participants in this grand partnership with God, with our Creator.
Yes.
And it's the Creator that ultimately manifests our heart's desires. And so, it's our job just to keep our hand on the rudder while embarking upon this great adventure, and the universe meets us with probably the best life that was ever meant for us as we go along the way with all these treasures from this vast storehouse that's meant just for you, just for me. And so rather than a career with a clearly defined ending called retirement to it, no, I've got these projects that I'm wonderfully enjoying along the way. We have work sessions. We don't work, we have sessions. We have engagement sessions in studios and canvases. Once you've painted a canvas, you're not finished. You go to a new canvas and you do a new expression of yourself. When I've written a song, I'm not done. I move on to another one for another expression. When I clean the kitchen, I don't do it the same way I did before. I go in there and with a new idea of expressing myself with this beauty of cleanliness as I go through it, and I load a dishwasher and I clean out the sink, and I'm doing it to the best of my ability to advance myself beyond this place where I am now.
You know, the way that you just described that way of thinking, it was so illuminating because it gave me the sense that, you know, we are as connected believers not under the things we do, and therefore we're not defined by them. You know, when you clean the kitchen, you're not going, oh my God, I'm going to be a kitchen cleaner forever. You know, I mean, we have to think and live beyond those tasks and be above those things in our own mind and in our own identities. And I just loved how you described it, because it was just something that we're simply putting our hand to from time to time, instead of this all defining, this is the way it's going to be forever and ever.
Right, because it's not forever and ever, because we're increasing.
Yes.
And an increase means we're moving beyond the now with our now, in the present moment, ever expanding from within the joy of our gratitude. And then the materialization of our desires, it manifests relative to the kinetic velocity of our expectations. Increase your expectations with an increase of joy and an increase of gratitude and thankfulness, and it increases directly proportional to the mass of the object and the square of its velocity. Mathematically speaking, it is kinetic belief equals 1/2 mass times the velocity squared. And so that is how it's measured. That is the scientific way that our life increases, through the joy of gratitude. Having a desire for more out of life is the beginning to attracting abundance. And so I'm just, you know, we do this. This is our life, Maggie.
Yeah.
And I am so grateful to have what I desire, to have what you and I collectively desire to have. And we have it now because we've asked for it, and we've received it now, whether you can see it or not. And that's how we live a life of gratitude. We don't live by what we see. We live by what we believe. And as believers, we choose our beliefs.
Yes.
We don't choose to believe what we're told to believe. We choose our highest viewpoint beliefs for perfecting our lives of increase right now as it is today. You know, I have to do this, and the last couple of weeks I think has been tough for a lot of people that have listened to news, and I know it's affected people all around the world. And I want to just say that there is a destructive force that has been on this earth for thousands of years. And it doesn't have a form, by the way. It uses forms, but it doesn't have one. And it's evidenced by death. It's evidenced by destruction, which the presence of all of that in the empirical world is self-evident. Negative destructive forces do not invent, they do not create, and it does not love, and it is devoid of compassion. That's how you will know it. It is the opposite of light, and it's attracted by the energetics of fear. KBs, I want you to listen very carefully right now. You and we have the ability to protect our children. The force behind the power of kinetic belief. It not only rearranges things, it creates and it attracts positive change. And it's also the most powerful force in the universe, by the way. And it is able to prevent evil from coming against us, against our families, and against our children. When we unwaveringly practice kinetic belief, the quantitative response is an instantaneous shield. Now listen to me. The universe has been equipped to forcibly uphold the grateful intentions of every single human being. And when these intentions are aligned with that of creation, with that of a loving creator, which is to expand life, to become more, and it's to flourish. the universe forcibly upholds those intentions. And I'll tell you this, that as a person who's filled with light and love, we have a responsibility to use our creative authority over every kind of destructive, negative, vile enemy that there is to life. So we resist the power of destructiveness. And we do it by placing a demand on protection and standing in the creative authority that we have for our children. Regardless of what's happening around us, you and I, we don't have to live in fear. The Creator has given us all of the authority that we'll ever need for physical protection. There is power in that. There is power in knowing who we are and whose we are. Using our authority for a shield of protection over every destructive force, it can be done quickly, and we can speak light, and we can speak love, and we can attract protection and wisdom for the essence of the abundant life to forcefully protect our families. We can speak with gratitude our demands for sanctity on our way to work while we're out running errands, and we can do this at any time. Receiving protection and gratitude, it can be done as soon as we awaken in the morning. And I'll tell you that invoking our creative, kinetic believer's authority and effectively becoming powerfully protected, it becomes second nature when we make a routine out of it. We invoke the manifestation of protection on our children, and we do it by using our God-given authority when we say things like, my children are protected from every kind of harm, every force of destruction, and every evil right now. I'm grateful for their protection, for their safety, and for their flourishing life, which is the original intention of the Creator's expanding creation, and which is right now granted to my children, and they have it now. They have it tomorrow, and they have it 10 years from now. And for the presence of their protection, I am so satisfied. I am so very grateful. No force of darkness, decay, or death can come near my children. The force of light and love that's within me right now is so far greater than any power of destruction. Death and the force of destruction, you vile thing, you stay away from my children's school and from everything that affects me and my family. You stay away from my home and from every vehicle and building I go into. I'm not afraid, for greater is the power of my ability to prosper and to be blessed than the power of destruction. So I'm at peace because I'm filled with love and with light and with gratitude, for I have the creative authority within me right now, and it's done in my life as it was intended to be. Look, it's one thing to know what to do, but it is another one to do it. And we stay active in our kinetic belief by applying the 5 modalities to our everyday lives. At any time, we can resist destruction by the creative authority that we have. We are not victims. And when it comes to our children, we're not defenseless. We have circumstantial control, whether we use it or not. Every person has it. It's just that most don't use it. But the power to excise undesirable things from within our realm of existence is absolutely under our dominion. But you've got to know it, and you have to adhere to it, and rely upon the knowledge of your belief. When we desire what we imagine to be our truth, not doubting, we can have peace that our children are under our creative covering of protection that cannot be touched by destructive forces. And so we continue in interceding to manifest protection for our schools. And we let the desire of destructive forces know that it cannot have our children. We use our dominant authority to put the bias of evil on notice that it has no right to our lives or to the lives of our children. We have the authority for the blessing of long life, joy, happiness, health, and prosperity. Let's work on some highest viewpoints.
Yes.
Just say this aloud. Say, I am so grateful
I'm so grateful
for the privilege my children have
for the privilege my children have
to learn and develop on this earth safely.
to learn and develop on this earth safely.
No violence can take place in the lives of my children.
No violence can take place in the lives of my children.
So we take authority
So we take authority
over the forces of evil
over the forces of evil
and destruction
that
would attempt to destroy their lives.
attempt to destroy their lives.
I'm so grateful
I am so grateful
that for the supernatural protection over my children,
for the supernatural protection over my children.
there's no destructive force or power
There's no destructive force or power
that can come near my family
that can come near my family
or their schools,
or their schools.
and that every plan for destruction
Every plan for destruction
that is in the dark,
that's in the dark,
that is void of light and love,
that is void of light and love,
will be exposed by the
it's
light
going to be exposed by the light
and stopped.
and stopped.
I'm grateful for the wisdom
I'm grateful for the wisdom
to receive intuitive knowledge
to receive intuitive knowledge
regarding what to do
regarding what to do
and when to do it.
and when to do it.
I'm grateful
I'm grateful
for insight
for insight
and perspective, for the power of the knowledge
for the power of the knowledge
of the will of my genius of purpose,
of the will of my genius of purpose,
to know that it's working within me now,
to know that it's working within me now,
and by its authority
and by its authority
for abundant living,
I
cover my family
and I cover my family
with the power to advance
with the power to advance
our minds, bodies, and souls
and souls
safely
safely
toward perfected completion. When we speak affirmations like this in the power of our kinetic belief, not doubting, we can have peace that our children are under a covering of protection that cannot be touched by those who seek their destruction. Continue using your kinetic belief to intercede for our schools. We have that creative authority, and there's no greater power that can stop it. Peace is always beautiful. That's what Walt Whitman said. Find beauty where you are, and you'll always be at peace. Sending out much light and love to all you creative creators around the world.
Thanks as usual, Steve, for all the wisdom.
Bye.